one of the worst parts, if not the worst part of distance learning has been this feeling. That feeling when you call on students, when you ask them to participate, when you ask them to unmute themselves to answer a question, and you just get crickets. Except in distance learning, it feels more like this because you're also facing a wall of just black screens. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is how to create student cohorts so that hopefully your kids are more willing to engage with you, more willing to engage with each other, and maybe, just maybe, willing to turn on their cameras. We got some feedback from a student right here in Northside, and she gave us some words of wisdom about why it's so hard to be in a Zoom meeting and to turn on your camera or to unmute yourself with your teacher or with the other students. She said, if you put me in a breakout room with kids I don't know, I'm not going to turn on my camera or talk. It's just too awkward. She said, I don't know those kids. I don't want them seeing me or my room or my house. And that's understandable for a lot of different reasons. We've all had that feeling when guests come over, when company comes over, and your house or your room or your apartment does not look the way you want it to. And it's embarrassing. We also know that a lot of our students have younger siblings at home that they're caring for. They also have work commitments. And for whatever reason, they may not be willing to let other people in, and that includes us. Some other students we spoke to said, please don't put me in a random group, especially at first. Let me pick my group or choose a good group that I can get to know, and then keep us there so that we can work together. And I think this is a really interesting point, right? So we know about the embarrassment piece. We know about the letting a stranger into my home piece. And so this helps us to understand why that happens and then how we can move forward. So the student who gave us this piece of advice, and I thought this was really interesting, she's actually a senior at a magnet school. So that means that she knows her classmates. She knows the other kids in her program. She already knows who she works with, who's good at collaboration. And that's going to be great for kids who want to pick their group. Now, this is really helpful for our seniors, for our juniors. It might be a little harder for our freshmen or for our sophomores because our freshmen came in not knowing anybody. Or they maybe came in with some friends from middle school, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have gotten to know each other or that they are in the same class period with those kids, those friends they knew from middle school. So putting kids in a group can be tricky if we're choosing random groups every time. So again, let me pick my group or put me in a group purposefully so that I can get to know each other, we can get to know each other, and that we can kind of develop some work habits together. Another one that she mentioned was that she would like to be in the same chat with the same elbow partner for those short kinds of talks. So maybe my work group is going to have 4 kids, but then my elbow partner is going to be someone else, maybe like a 5th student, or it could be someone from my work group. It kind of depends on what works best for you in the classroom as the teacher and how that workflow kind of shapes up for you. But again, this is our senior. She said, if I can get to know my partner or if I can work with someone that I know, I would be more willing to talk. This really squares with some of the research and some of the writing that we've seen recently about how to teach in a virtual environment. And some of these pieces come from The Cult of Pedagogy by Jennifer Gonzalez. And one of her recent podcast episodes was called How to Teach When Everyone is Scattered. And one of the pieces that she focused on in that episode was creating student cohorts. She says in some classes, these cohorts are simply contact groups so that when students get stuck, they can get clarification or help from each other. In other cases, cohorts actually work on projects or assignments together. So you can do this a little bit more informally, a little bit more formally, again, depending on what you think your kids need and depending on what you think is manageable. She goes on to say, in classrooms where face-to-face and at-home students are participating at the same time, teachers are putting students into pairs made up of one face-to-face and one at-home learner. This arrangement gives each at-home student a designated partner to connect them to what's happening in class. And I have to say, as the parent of students who have been face-to-face and at home, this is really valuable, especially for our at-home learners, because it's so hard for them to feel like they're a part of the real class environment. So if we can partner some of our face-to-face kids with our at-home kids, that might help them make some connections as well. And then she goes on to say, for best results, give students a getting to know you activity to do with their cohort or their partner so that they can form a connection and feel more comfortable with each other. And those short get to know each other activities can be something really simple like, what do you order from Starbucks? What is your Whataburger order? What did you have or not have for breakfast this morning? Tell me about the last really great movie or show you watched. So it doesn't have to be a really involved activity. It can just be a simple discussion prompt that they can talk about for just a minute or two before they get into the learning. So the next thing we want to talk about is, what does this look like in a real class? And we've got a great teacher right here in Northside who's worked up a solution that she called table groups. And this is from Julie Morgan, who is an English teacher at Health Careers. What Julie created are table groups, and she shared this Google Doc with her students at the beginning of the school year. And what she said was, think of this as a desk at a table or a seat at a table, just like if you were walking into our classroom on the first day of school. If you arrive early, you get first pick. If you arrive a little bit later, you have some limited choices. So look around at who is in our class before you make your choice. And then she said, when we think about these tables, this is going to be your discussion group. Think about this as the group of kids that you would be sitting with just on a regular day in person, face to face. And then as we come back into the classroom, it's going to end up being the physical table where you'll sit. And that, I think, is another layer of comfort for kids, that when I finally do come back to the class, I'm going to know some of the people in the room because we've been working together on assignments. And so in Julie's class, her kids signed up for a seat at the table, and they filled all 8 of these tables. Now, some groups only have 2 kids, which is fine. And then some groups only have 3 kids, also okay, not a problem there either. We just don't want kids to add more seats to their table and say, well, I really wanted to be at table 2 with Jake, Camilla, Abigail, and Allison. I'm just going to add myself into that. Once we've hit 4, we're going to stay at 4. And this is going to allow our virtual and our face-to-face kids to collaborate together in real time during the class period or outside of class, depending on what they're working on. The other brilliant part about this strategy is I can drop in resources for my groups that they're going to share together and kind of collaborate on. So let's say that I was doing a small group activity on examining credibility, bias, and accuracy. I've got a copy for table 1, and I just link it right here. And now Jordan, Giselle, Lauren, and Michael can go right here to this doc and work on it together. I've also made a copy for, I'm sorry, this is table 1, but it should say table 2. But I've got another copy for this group, and for this group, and for this group. So they can all have their own document that they collaborate on. And it's linked here so they know where to find it when they're working on their assignment. Now, it may sound like a lot of work to create a document for every group to work on, but just remember there are some little tricks that you can use in Google Drive. So if I'm working on my small groups, and this is table 1, 2, 3, 4, I've already got this set up. You can highlight all 4 of these Google Docs, right click and make a copy, and it will make a copy of all 4 for you. So once those copies are generated, I can just go in and rename them second period, third period, for whatever my other class periods are. And that should save you just a little bit of time on that part of the process.